Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my talk on transitions. I'm about to share with you the presentation that I've created in regards to transition to university. You should all now be able to see a presentation on your screen. So this afternoon session is focused on the transition to university and support and advice for students starting in higher education. So first of all, my name is Laura and I work for a project called the Start to Success Project. This is a collaborative project between Keele and Staffordshire University and also with 3 local partner colleges as well in the Staffordshire area. The Start to Success project is focused on supporting the mental well-being of students and also supporting transitions into university, through university and out of university. It is my job to support FE students and support their transition from college or sixth form into university. And within that, it's really looking at supporting the mental well-being of students, and creating resources and support for students and staff. So today we're going to be talking about the transition to university, and we're going to be talking about managing expectations, loneliness and isolation, self-care, resilience and well-being. The reason I've chosen these themes is because a lot of the feedback I've had from students and FE students in the position of starting university, these are the areas which they have wanted a little bit more information on. These are the areas that have seemed to really help and support them in getting ready for the transition to university. So first of all, the transition to university. I've just got a quote here from a student just explaining a little bit about their experience of moving from college to university. They state here that it, is really different. They expected the work to be different, which it is, but they also mention about your timetable, doing cooking and finding your way around. It can be really stressful at first as they felt overwhelmed and they didn't want to say anything as they thought it was just me. I think this students' experience really identifies a lot of the kind of key issues that students face moving from college to university. They identify here a little bit about the workload being different to college and the timetable, cooking, and what I think they highlight here is it's not just 1 or 2 things, it's actually all these changes that happen at the same time. And that is why, as a project, we're really aware that this is a really difficult and exciting time for students, and what can we do just to make sure students are as prepared as they can be for this transition, not only in regards to work and cooking, but also in regards to their mental well-being as well. So yeah, that's what we are going to be looking at today. So first and foremost, managing expectations of university. I think that this is really key here, as I've noted here, the rose-tinted glasses effect. So in regards to things through rose-tinted glasses, what I mean by that is generally when people are talking about their university experience, or maybe it's the universities advertising themselves, everything is a little bit through this lens of this is fantastic, this is great. People said, this is the best time of my life, or people will likely tell you, this is going to be the best time of your life, which, there is so many fantastic things to be said about university, and those things, can and are true. However, I think to have all that prior to starting university can be a little bit overwhelming, and I think it doesn't necessarily give you the information on what might be a little bit tougher, and gives you this impression that it's a chance to really make all the best friends that you've always wanted at university. And sometimes that might be a little bit different to the kind of image that's sold to you. So again, representations of uni don't always show some of the tougher aspects of university life, and the images we get as well, I've popped this on here, are, you know, a lot of kind of the drinking culture, going out, meeting people, being sociable, having just the best time. You see people posting loads of photos with all their, you know, new friends. I think it's just really important to talk a little bit about these expectations and actually what this can look like, especially when starting university. So a little bit more on that then. So here I've just outlined some of the expectations of university and what can be the reality. So some of the expectations might be, I'll meet my best friends in the first couple of weeks of uni, or I've always done really well in assignments from college, so I'm going to get really good marks at university. And the reality of this can be a bit different. You know, sometimes meeting people that you really click with happens when you least expect it, and don't put a time limit on it. It might be that, you know, the people in your halls or the people on your course might not be instantly who you'd click with or the type of people that you've been friends with before. That doesn't mean that if the first couple of weeks you haven't made all your best friends, that is anything to worry about. Generally, the friends you make, they might change. You might meet new people as time goes by. And secondly, here I've got the reality. University study is really different to college, and this might mean initially getting used to new methods of writing assessments. So it doesn't necessarily mean you won't do well or you don't have the skills. It just might mean that the techniques and the ways of writing assessments is just something to get used to, different to how you would have done that at college or sixth form. So some top tips here for managing expectations. So break it down into smaller chunks. So here I've got a little bit of a case study from a student. So they say that 2 days after moving into their room in halls, they phoned their mum. They told them to see how they would feel in a week. Reluctantly, the student agreed. A week later, I was back at home for the weekend, and that's how they managed. They broke it up into small, achievable, time-based goals. They say that now they visit home occasionally and they love it at uni. I think this is really important, especially if you are moving away from home, to break it down. So if things maybe aren't going exactly as planned straight away, obviously it's really good to talk about what is happening and to give it time. So next week or in 2 weeks, I will do X, Y, and Z, or I will see, you know, I will go home, I will visit my friends from home, just to give it that time to settle, because everything is so new. It's bound to feel a little bit overwhelming. The second thing here is I've got social media. So social media can be really positive in regards to kind of meeting people, finding people on your course, etc. But also I think there's a little bit of take it social media with a pinch of salt. Again, as mentioned a couple of slides ago, it really might be that you're seeing that all these people having this fantastic time, they're doing all this kind of stuff, and you're wondering why am I not doing that? And actually, I think we've got to remember that we never quite know the full picture on social media, so just to take that with a pinch of salt. The next thing I've put here is your comfort zone. So actually, it's one thing to be finding the transition to uni a little bit difficult, but also it can be really good to be stepped out of your comfort zone, to be almost in a position where you are pushing yourself to meet people or to learn something new. And it does give you the opportunity to gain a lot of skills as well. So even though managing these expectations might be a little bit different to how you expected, do also try and remember that actually pushing yourself and being out of your comfort zone can be a really good chance for growth as well. And the final one I've got here is focus on you. So what I mean by this, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, is give yourself some really good options for self-care. Make sure you've sketched out some time to be able to do something that you enjoy. Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's just spending a little bit of time on your own, going for a walk, getting to know your surroundings, just to really give you that time to have that focus on you and process what's changed and what is going on. So the next theme I wanted to discuss here is loneliness and isolation. So I'm fully aware that the word isolation has taken on quite a new meaning since developing some of these themes initially, and that word has quite a lot of potential negative connotations on it. It probably means that over the past couple of years you might have been impacted in the sense of being in isolation, and this might have affected your studies and your course. But what I'm talking about here is in terms of feeling lonely and feeling isolated from your surroundings. So I thought it was just really important to address here that we all feel really lonely from time to time, but loneliness can really impact and affect students particularly. So the reason that I've put this here is because we're all very familiar from the feeling of feeling alone in a crowded room. So you can be in a room full of people and feeling really separate from those, feeling really difficult, feeling really different. And I think it's really important to point out here that a lot of the time loneliness and isolation is kind of maybe stereotyped at the older generation being really lonely, whereas actually as a student as well, this can be something that really, really affects you. And it might be something that you're not willing to easily want to talk about or to admit. But I just wanted to make you guys aware that this is something that is fed back from students to me a lot. So the likelihood is, if you are feeling this way, that you aren't going to be the only person that's feeling a little bit lonely, a little bit isolated, and a little bit alone. So what's really important to remember is that obviously feelings of loneliness are personal. So everyone's experience of loneliness will be different. Again, that goes back to that point of you could be, in class in your course and you're just thinking, oh, is this the right course for me? I feel like I'm not meant to be here. I feel like I don't fit in here. There can be a lot of ways of feeling and experiencing that loneliness. So what do we do to combat it then? What do we do to ensure that we are doing the best we can if we are feeling a bit lonely and a bit isolated? So some of the tips I've got here is to do something practical, such as heading out for a walk. This can give you a chance to clear your head and connect with your surroundings. Read a book or listen to an audio book. This can really help you relax and immerse yourself in something that you enjoy. Join a society. One of the key bits of information that students fed back to me is how much joining a society stops them feeling isolated. I think it's really important to say as well that there really is something for everybody. And if there is not a society that you feel you would want to join, or maybe wouldn't be the kind of thing that you'd be interested in, you can absolutely create your own. There's some really fantastic societies out there, and they're a really great way of meeting like-minded people, maybe people that you'd be less likely to meet just on your kind of normal student pathway through your course and whatnot. So if you're away from home, bring something into your room that reminds you of home or brings you comfort. Create a space that's really calming and comforting and this has a really positive effect on our mental health. Phone a friend. So I'm not talking about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire here. I'm pretty sure that's actually quite an old TV show now. But I'm talking about picking up the phone, even having a chat, texting a mate. It can seem a bit tough when you're feeling a bit low, but it can be really great when we want to just feel that connection, and sometimes just having a little bit of a laugh and sharing kind of what's going on. I think it's just really great to reach out at these times. So kind of finally, really, with loneliness, a couple of points here that I wanted to address is loneliness and enjoying your own company are two very different things. So spending time on your own to study or do things that you enjoy doesn't always mean that you'll feel lonely. In fact, this can be really essential for self-care. Another kind of quote here is, one thing I've learned is the difference between feeling alone and feeling lonely. And again, how you can feel quite lonely and crowded full of people, but quite peaceful and content when alone. So there's just also other ways of framing loneliness as well. And just to be really checking in with your feelings, how you're feeling about this, whether, spending a bit of time on your own to relax and listen to a podcast and feeling okay, or if you're around people and feeling really disconnected and making you feel really, really alone. There are kind of a lot of different ways that we can frame loneliness. So what I would say finally in regards to feeling this way is support. So if you are experiencing loneliness over a really extended period of time, don't be afraid to reach out to people that you trust and let them know how you're feeling. There really is no shame in feeling lonely. At university as well, you'll also be able to access support from your uni. They'll be able to offer you loads of different advice, guidance, and personalised support. So again, do reach out to them just to kind of tell them a little bit about what's going on, how you've been feeling, and they can offer you loads of support and advice to be able to kind of understand this a little bit more and what you can do to support in regards to feeling that loneliness. I will talk a little bit about support later as well. So moving on now to self-care. So contrary to kind of popular kind of discussions around self-care, being bubbly baths and chocolate and face masks, which are all absolutely great and fantastic if you do use those as a form of self-care. But I wanted to talk about maybe some of the less talked about aspects of self-care and how we can incorporate those as a student and how we can incorporate those within the transition to university in order to support yourself. So the word self-care is a little bit of a buzzword, I feel, as well, and something that is bandied around quite a lot these days, whereas I think it's really important to have a really good understanding of what that means to you, what you class as self-care. So a few of the bits that I've put in here are things that from a mental well-being point of view and an overall well-being point of view are really essential in regards to self-care and looking after yourself. So the first one of those here is I've got sleep. So ensuring that you are getting a decent amount of sleep and rest, which can be quite difficult when starting university, when being in a completely new place, maybe you are out a little bit later than usual, or maybe you have got deadlines and work, but it's really important to prioritise sleep and ensuring that you are getting a restful night's sleep. So there is lots of advice online in regards to sleep hygiene. So that talks you through a lot of things like creating a bedtime routine, which all sounds a little bit over the top, I think, to some people, but actually creating really good sleeping patterns, generally trying to go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, will make you feel a whole lot different. And sleep has such a huge impact on us and our mental well-being. The second that I've got here is rest. So similar to sleep, but rest is also really important to be able to have time out for yourself, to feel, I think there can be a lot of pressure when starting university, especially if you do have a lot of work or you maybe feel like you want to say yes to everything, whereas it is also really important to have some rest time, to be able to take a little bit of time out, whether that's kind of reading a book, just to be able to have that time to kind of process everything that's going on. I then have boundaries here, and this has been something that's been fed back to me from students. Part of self-care can be having really kind of good boundaries and a really good knowledge of your own boundaries, really. So one of the examples students might give to me is the ability to say no, to say actually not saying yes to every event or yes to everything, and to be really aware of what your own boundaries are as a person, and how you can kind of protect yourself and put those boundaries up to kind of ensure that people are treating you in the best way possible, and they kind of know maybe what is okay and what's not okay, and explaining to them what those boundaries are. And then one of the kind of final ones that I've got here for kind of maybe lesser talked about self-care is movement. So I wanted to put the word movement instead of kind of fitness or exercise, because really movement is and is something that, you know, movement could be doing something you enjoy, going for a walk. And I think kind of painting it as exercise is really important, and it's whatever you do that makes you feel good. But obviously that could be things like taking the steps instead of taking the lift, just to keep your body moving as well is really key in regards to self-care and doing things you enjoy. It might be yoga, it might be running, you know, there's absolutely loads of things to do. It might be that you do want to join some of the sports clubs, but again, it's doing what feels right for you, not feeling pressured in any way in that regard. So that's the kind of lesser talked about self-care. So what else can we do in regards to supporting self-care then? So we could, one of the kind of sessions I did with students was making a self-care box. So this can be really useful, especially if you're kind of moving away from university, or for anybody really. I think it's really useful. And what that is very much does what it says on the tin. Create a self-care box full of items that bring you self-care. So that could be things like a scented candle, that could be kind of photographs of, you know, a pet or family members, and actually putting all these little things in a box, just to, if you're feeling like you want a little bit of a self-care afternoon, a little bit of a self-care evening or a self-care day, you can maybe put things in there that you can utilize within that time. It could be a really good book, and just to really treat yourself, really, you could update a self-care box every month, so it's a little bit of a treat, and really carve out that time. The second thing I've got here is to really, if possible, try and create a plan for the first week of university. And I'm not talking here in terms of kind of where your lectures are or things like that. I'm talking about kind of what you're going to do in that week in order to look after yourself. So that could include planning easy, tasty and healthy meals. It can be really overwhelming the first kind of few weeks of university, and if you've got a little bit of a plan of maybe what you might make for your tea one night, it can be really beneficial in order for you to kind of get through these first few weeks. And again, within that, I've got her create a self-care timetable as well. So really be sketching out time within the week to be able to practice some self-care. A lot of research suggests that we all run around like mad, and we never really manage to sketch in that time. So if you can put that time aside, it can be really, really positive and has a really positive impact on your mental health. So moving on now a little bit to student resilience. So what I mean when I talk about this is that, you know, every university experience is unique, and sometimes it takes a little while to find your balance and to settle. What you can do is you can acknowledge anxiety if you do have it, or acknowledge your anxiety around the situation, but don't let this dictate your whole experience. So if you are finding things a little bit tougher than usual, or if you are finding that things maybe aren't quite what you expected, it is normal to maybe feel worry and a little bit of anxiety around this, but try not to let that completely dictate your whole experience at this point. And remind yourself that creating your own journey is empowering and makes your university unique to you and your interests. So again, this really is your chance to kind of create your journey within university and make this, you know, your unique experience as well. Even if there are kind of a couple of mishaps in the first few weeks, it's kind of also information that you could share to other students that start in university to maybe best prepare them, say, oh, well, I forgot this, or this didn't happen. You know, sometimes when things go wrong, it's a really good chance to make things go right. So again, there's no ready-made university experience or a one-size-fits-all aspect to university life. There really will be many ups and downs during this time, and this does help build your resilience and also allows for reflection on what works well and not so well. So it's really good at this time to be really self-aware as well. So There probably, you know, nobody is perfect, and there probably is going to be times where either you make a mistake, we do something wrong, or a first bit of coursework comes back and it's maybe not the grade that you quite intended, and it just is a little bit of a learning activity as well, to be able to kind of look at maybe what you can improve on or what you can do in order to kind of bypass this little bit of a bump in the road, so to speak. Excuse me. So a little bit more on resilience and stress management in particular. So I've got some kind of tips here. So solution-based thinking, try to consider the pros and cons to your options to help you decide the best way forward. Be realistic about your goals and what you can and what you can't change. So don't sweat the small stuff. Not every obstacle is the end of the world, and a lot of obstacles will help you to learn and to grow. So acknowledge your feelings and don't bottle them up. The old saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, can really, really be true. So again, what we've mentioned here, get a good sleep hygiene routine to help you get the right amount of sleep that your body needs. Practice good time management to help you stay organised and on top of your responsibilities. Take action to find solutions and seek help where needed. So again, a little bit more on stress management here. So we've got some kind of healthy and maybe more an unhealthy way of managing stress. So stress can be helpful sometimes when experienced in very small amounts. And I do want to stress that, very small amounts. I'm not sat here saying that stress is healthy. I'm more talking about when it kind of gets you motivated to get something done. So it can spur you on to take action in difficult situations and can lead you to achieve and succeed in. For example, feeling a healthy amount of stress before an exam can motivate you to focus on your revision and to do well. So obviously there is the unhealthy side here as well. So sometimes you might experience levels of stress that can't be managed through your usual coping strategies. And this can start to have a really negative impact on your well-being. And what I want to say here is if you do struggle to manage stress, then you should take some steps to develop your emotional resilience to help you bounce back and adapt in the face of challenging circumstances. Obviously as well, this isn't all down to you to manage. That your university support team are there for you if you are starting to experience high levels of stress and being unable to cope or manage. So please do reach out if that is what you are experiencing. So moving on to well-being now. So what I wanted to say a little bit about well-being is that, you know, starting university can be a time of excitement, but it really does also bring a number of worries, anxieties, or apprehensions. I don't want you guys to worry though, as there is a lot of steps that you can take to look after yourself and your own well-being. And I guess by making sure you always keep your mental health an important priority, this can really help you avoid experiencing serious problems later down the line. So I guess that's the main thing with well-being. It's being aware of our own well-being, knowing when things might be a little bit difficult and when we can manage, and maybe when we need to seek out extra support as well. Even when our well-being's really good and we're feeling really good, it's always important to keep it as a priority and keep checking in with our well-being and with our emotions and what we are feeling. So that way we're really in a good position to reach out if we do need a little bit of extra support. And we also that way know what can really help us when we're starting to struggle. So a really good way to look at managing your well-being and to incorporate well-being into your daily life is through the 5 ways to well-being. So the 5 ways to well-being are to connect, to take notice, be active, to give, and to learn. So a little bit more on how we can incorporate the 5 ways to well-being into our daily lives. So connect, first of all. So good relationships are really important for your well-being. So try and make sure you are spending time with other people where possible. So try to make time to talk to your friends face to face rather than sending a message. Organise a group dinner within your halls and arrange to walk to class with your course mates. Obviously, a slight disclaimer I'll just pop in here is obviously with the current coronavirus pandemic, obviously manage these connections in a way that is abiding by the restrictions. But I imagine that all these things stated here will be possible when you are starting university. And the second one I've got here is activity and be active. So regular physical activity is associated with lower rates of depression and anxiety across all age groups. And there are lots of ways to start incorporating physical activity into your daily life while at uni. So, for example, you can take the stairs rather than using the lifts in campus buildings, join a sports team, whether it's competitive or just for fun, and try out some desk exercises such as stretching while you're studying. So you can Google these. There's absolutely loads of things you can do if you feel that you're especially not only studying, but if a lot of your course is still kind of managed online, such as the stretching and exercises around your desk as well. So furthermore, we've got take notice. So being aware of the present moment you're in and how your feelings can improve your mental well-being. So sometimes this might be referred to as mindfulness. So that is looking at paying attention to your thoughts and feelings, your body and the world around you. You can also do things like create a positive and clutter-free environment for your desk or workspace, and make a note of how you feel in different situations, just again to really develop that self-awareness and to know what kind of impacts you in positive or negative ways. And then we've got give here. So participating in activities which help others can help you improve your feelings of happiness and self-worth. You know, even really small acts of kindness within your daily life can really make a difference. So, for example, you could leave a positive note in a library book for the next person to read. You could help a struggling classmate by organising a group revision session, or you could maybe take part in a volunteering project with your students' union. The final one here is learn. So learning is a lifelong process, and this can enhance your self-esteem and confidence, which in turn has a really positive impact on your mental health and your well-being. At university, there is loads of opportunities to learn new skills. So, for example, you could take an elective module in a subject different to your main degree course. You could join a society where you could learn new skills, or learn how to cook a range of healthy meals to suit your student budget. And again, there's loads of information online and on our larger transitions document as well that I believe will be being shared after this presentation. So moving on now to support, general support at university. So you might be really worried that challenges might be ahead for you at university, but you will find that there are a range of support services to help you through any difficulties that you might face. So I'll move on to telling you what those kind of general support services are. But first, I just wanted to talk a little bit about mental health support at university. So if you're already receiving support for your mental health in your home area, for example, this might be through your GP or a mental health service, and to move into a new area for uni, it's really important you plan ahead to ensure a smooth transition for the support you'll need while at uni. For most secondary mental health care services, you will need a referral from your GP. So your first step should be to make an appointment to discuss your options. The earlier you can do this, the more likely it will be that the support you need can be ready for your transition to university. So this is just a little reminder before the kind of summer months to ensure that any support that you currently have or you might need at university to start getting in early. And another thing that I wanted to mention here was the disabled students allowance. So you might already have filled out information in regards to receiving DSA, but if not and you have a disability, this also covers mental health as well. Do have a look at the gov.uk website about potential disability support that you may be entitled to at university. And again, the earlier this application is put in, the quicker you might be able to get support at university. DSA can cover things like chronic and invisible illnesses alongside a lot of other disabilities and mental health needs as well. So some of the university support services, and this is just a really kind of, go back. excuse me, I'm a little bit rusty with the old technology sometimes. So the University Support Services, just generally here, I've kind of gathered the general types of support that is likely to be offered at your university. I can't say exactly, but generally speaking, this is the support that will be offered. So we have things like student guidance, personal tutors, resident support, pastoral support, disability support, academic support, counselling and mental health, money advice, welfare and wellbeing, and peer support. So I think it's just really important for me here to kind of explain that I think when you're starting university, it can almost be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, the amount of support that there is, but there generally will be a kind of point or a hub where you can go to inquire about the support at university and what it is that you might benefit from, which helps break it down a little bit. What's also too important to say actually is that if you know what university you're going to, you can also, I would advise this actually, taking a little look at the university website prior to starting university. So you've got a really good idea for the exact support that they do offer and how to access the service. So just another last word really on supporting your transition. So before starting university, register with the local GP. Look at, I don't know what it says that, look at the website of your university and check out virtual tours and photographs of accommodation. Talk through any worries with a teacher, parent and friend, and write down any concerns or unanswered questions so you have these written down to ask. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation today. There is a lot more information regarding transitions on the Start to Success website, which you can find here. My email is laura.kendall1@staffs.ac.uk. I'm more than happy for you to email me with any queries or questions you might have about the transition to university. And you can also follow us on Twitter here, where we're posting about a lot of the work that we're doing, and for you to keep up to date with the work that we're doing for mental health and transitions for students. But thank you so much for listening, everybody. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now, and thank you all and take care. Again, any questions, please do just drop me an email. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.